Good afternoon. Welcome. We are really excited to have you here today for our presentation from Community Health Systems and the great work that they're doing with BigQuery, building a foundation for AI and analytics. I'm Michael Ames. I'm Managing Director for Vertical Markets at SADA. I'm extremely proud today, as some of you might have heard the news, we were announced today as Google's Global Partner of the Year for 2023 in sales. We're proud. Thank you. We're proud of that, but I want to give another plug for another announcement that was a little quieter because I think that actually has more to say about the community and the ecosystem of Google Cloud than it does about SADA itself. About a week ago, for the first time, SADA was placed onto onto Gartner's Magic Quadrant for cloud transformation. Now, here's what's special about that. It's not a Google Cloud transformation. It's cloud transformation in general. SADA is a Google Cloud exclusive partner. The fact that Google Cloud's depth and breadth of capability is enough that a partner who works only on that platform can achieve Gartner level recognition is validation of the breadth and the depth and the work that has gone into Google Cloud over the last several years, and that's something that I think we can all be proud of and excited about. So thank you for joining, and we're excited to get moving forward on our presentation here. I want to start with this. So this is me 6 years ago. Look at the young pup I was. I might not have changed clothes since then. This was me at Google Next in 2017. A year earlier, my team at University of Colorado deployed what became the first ever cloud-based enterprise health data warehouse. Millions of patient records, full PHI. We did it on Google BigQuery. It was wonderfully successful, and I came to talk about it at 2017. And I'm highlighting this for a couple of things. One, this is the beginning of a story that today is continued through the work of Community Health Systems, which we'll be going into in detail. Two, take a look at the question we were asking in 2017. Could we cloud? Healthcare in those days, as many of you know, because I know many of you come from healthcare backgrounds, was still extremely uncertain about the question of can we even utilize the cloud in healthcare services. And so another thing that I am really proud of today, 6 years later, working in my role as a verticals lead and strategist with SADA, we talk to dozens, hundreds of healthcare organizations every year, and nobody is asking this question anymore. And to me, that's really exciting. And now it is just a question of how far can we go, what can we accomplish, and that's what we're going to talk about today. So I would like to first introduce and ask to come up to the stage my guests for today, Ahmed Shehata and Chris Williams. Come on up, guys.
Thank you, Mike.
I'm going to introduce them, and then I'm going to let them start talking. Glad to have you both. So Ahmed is Senior Director of IT over Data Intelligence and Business Analytics at Community Health Systems, which you'll hear us abbreviate CHS throughout this. I first met Ahmed in the early days of the pandemic. CHS had been SADA customers, and we got connected while Ahmed was leading his team through helping CHS figure out how to react to this crazy new world that we were in collecting and analyzing and reporting all of their healthcare data. And I was deeply impressed by his concern, by his leadership, and by the care that he took, taking very seriously that responsibility for his organization and the people that they cared for. And it's been an honor to continue to work with Ahmed over the last several years on a number of other cloud initiatives. So we're grateful to be here.
Thank you.
Chris is a technical account manager from Google, and Ahmed asked for Chris to join because he's been so instrumental in the success that CHS has had. And I'm happy to have Chris here because A, he's a handsome guy, and that helps any stage presence.
Not handsome. So.
I'm just saying that Chris is raising the average for all of us. Second, Chris's involvement is such a perfect example of how well the Google Cloud partner ecosystem can work with the SADA account and technical teams working in conjunction, daily calls, weekly calls with Chris and others from the Google account team, working together in order to help our customers achieve success. And he's been an excellent, outstanding collaborator. You'll get to hear more from him a little bit later. So I'm done talking now for a little while. This audience needs to understand where we're starting from, so will you tell them a little bit about CHS?
Yes, sure. So thank you for the introduction, and thank you for being here, and thank you for the audience. It's really an honor to be with you and everyone. I mean, before I start talking about CHS, our company, I just need to understand from the audience, how many of you right now in the role of the executive level and the management level? Can I just raise a arm? Wow. And technical and data engineers, developers on the technical side. So I think we have 50-50. So I have 50, data analytics role. So I have to get some gauging right now, so we can make sure right now we will balance the conversation between the executive and management side and the technical side. And I'm available with any one of the technicals participants here to dig deeply in the technical solutions. But just to talk about CHS, it's Community Health Systems, established since 1986, I believe. I joined them back in the, I believe, late 2018. And CHS, we have facilities across more than, I believe, 15 states. We have 77 facilities, thousands of acute care, and we have over 600 physicians. And when we are talking about CHS with one of the leading healthcare management companies across the nation and across in the United States, and that gives you an indication how much data we have, because we have data for millions and millions and millions of patients, millions of systems. I mean, not systems, but actually the data points thousands of data points that we acquire on a daily basis. So it's a very large data ecosystems, and we're going to talk more about this, but this is CHS, great company to work for, by the way. We still have work from home policy, so I don't require to come to office. With the permission of my CIO, definitely, because it's a big point to keep the labor right now. But also a great company to work for from innovation perspective. Our leadership support us to get into new technology, and that's why we partnered with SADA and Google.
And again, going back to kind of the story that we're telling here, if I had put up a similar slide for the organization that I was representing the first time that this was done 6 years ago, the numbers would have read 2 at the top, and then probably a bunch of zeros after that, right? So the scale that we're dealing with now is exponentially beyond what has been dealt with then. So nobody embarks on a dramatic change in a cloud journey without reasons to do it. So talk to us a little bit about some of the conditions at CHS that led to your decision to move your data warehousing foundation up into the cloud.
I think that's a great question, and maybe most of the executives, they have this question in mind. Should I move to the cloud? Should I stay on-prem? Google is versus other vendors that they are actually providing similar services. I joined CHS just for this specific reason, because I did it before with AWS. And when I joined CHS, it was the same challenges that you might already facing right now with an on-prem legacy data warehouse. You will need to work with your infrastructure team whenever there is a node down or a node needs upgrades. How much we put in the upgrades? You're maintaining commodity platform by your own. So basically, moving to a cloud solution, that helps you to outsource all this to the people that will do it best. Why? Because they have army of infrastructure guys behind the scene that you will never be able to have it on-prem, on the on-prem environment. You need to have your system engineers, network engineers, all these software engineers. If you're running conventional Hadoop, ton of Linux nodes that you're running. So whenever you're facing an issue, it's affecting you, then you will need to also plan for all these upgrades and things, patching and all this kind of stuff. So when I joined CHS back in 2018, these things were the peak. CHS, before my time, they had what I call a textbook data warehouse, basically built with all stages, built with from A to Z, from all our HRs, AMRs, all the way up to our presentation layer, with a Cognos, with all stages, that was there already. But we were facing challenges. We were trying to struggle to finish our loads within 24 hours, to finish from all these HRs. We will struggle sometimes when have one of the loads failure, it's affecting our executive layer reporting because you are and what I'm hearing for the technical guys might be familiar stories. So we were facing all these kind of issues. That's when I joined them. And honestly, at that time, it was either that we start investing more and more in our on-prem infrastructure, or we start evaluating cloud solutions. I came from AWS, so I was biased against AWS. And it's good that I didn't go this route, because now I know right now when I did, it was the right decisions. And back then we evaluated all the 3 vendors, and it made complete sense to move with a data company that their business is data. And that helped us down the road. They listen to us, they listen to our roadmap, the roadmaps reflect what we need. It was a success story because of all that. So long story short, it started as an upgrade, modernization for your infrastructure project, and then it evolved to become a data foundational capability. Because when I joined at that time, when I talked to Paul Novak and our CIO, I started discussing, in order to build the data capabilities in any organization, you need a foundation. Your data platform is a foundation for everything on top. You'll put data governance, data quality, all kind of the data capabilities models on top of that. We had significant issues with our data foundation. We cannot continue. It was a decision either to continue, or at sometimes you don't need to think about completely different solution other than a data platform.
And it can be so tempting to focus on, oh, we need to do some AI over here. Let's grab some data and go do some AI. Or we've got an interoperability problem over there. Let's plug a solution in here and move some data in, without thinking about how do you take a structured approach, build that strong foundation that other things can be built on. So I'd be curious to hear, like you mentioned, issues with performance and refresh times and all of the challenges with patching and those kinds of things at the infrastructure level. But at the sort of business level, were there capabilities that you wanted to be able to do that you simply couldn't have done under the old architecture that you were hoping to unlock with the new architecture?
We started our data science group few years actually after I joined, and data science guys, I love them there, and everyone should like them. They are the people that's with data. They love data. They love huge amount of data, and they need data sets. They need to train models. So the first thing when I met with the VP for data science, he was asking me, okay, I need an environment to start my notebooks and start my stuff. Back in the old days, it would have taken me right now working with an architecture team, architect a solution, and then start building this solution and then start presenting this. At that time, he joined us when we were half of the journey with our GCP transformation. And it took us literally 1 week to stand his AI ML sandbox, and he started actually running his models and stuff. 1 week. That's with all our security, architecture, everything.
With the foundation in place.
With the foundation.
You could get to there within.
Just plug this on top of it, and we are good to go.
And then you've made happy data scientists.
I don't know about they're happy or not. They still ask more and more and more. So
maybe they've moved the needle a little bit.
Yeah. But
and Chris, you were part of this. Like, what are some of the other kinds of unlocked capabilities?
Yeah, I think one thing that I heard a lot from, and so for me, I spend most of my time with Ahmed and some of his data analysts, is all around reporting. So speed to reporting using Looker Studio and some of our other BI products was a huge selling point. Lots of quick wins, a lot of excitement. We're talking about hundreds of dashboards, different reports, and so I think that that also helped to kind of sell the vision, right? Because you're able to kind of build up these reports, see the visuals very quickly, share them, collaborate, and it's all done in a very governed and secure way.
Yeah, lovely, lovely. Let's talk a little bit about kind of what was built here, right? So we've got two stages here, but at the very high level, Ahmed, take us through the major components of the architecture, and then for the engineers in the room, I promise we'll drill in with more boxes and lines.
Yeah, I mean, as you can see from the slide, it's pretty much a standard data platform as you build in many other organizations. So you have your data sources. In our case, yes, it's a tremendous amount of sources. You have hundreds of clinics, facilities. You have all these other data sources that you get from the business side data sources too. So we are dealing with huge amount of data that we need to centralize on a daily basis. That's one gift. So the data sources side, and you need to support both. Before Google, because majorly, as you know, you have two major use cases in our business, either batch processing or real time. So before Google, we supported batch processing with a struggle. We're struggling with the batch processing. Our SLAs actually that we can commit to the business was 48 hours. 48 hours from the time you commit the record in the EHR about the patient, save, to the time that I can present the charge in a finance report, for example. That was my SLA at that time, 48 hours for the batch. Now we are down to 6 hours. 6 hours. They are basically, it's like day and night.
Yeah, I mean, that's amazing. So 48 hours means, it is over 2 days, because when the data is refreshed, then it's time before people log in and see it, before that data is available. Yep. Now you're down to 6, which means essentially you're able to offer same-day updates on data,
yes,
which in a fast-paced health system makes a huge difference on the ability to be able to make decisions and react to that data.
Yeah, and usually the batch helps with the financials. That's the finance data processing side, because these people, they can wait until next day to get their things together. However, we could not, as before in the legacy environment, support any near real-time, basically, use cases. Now with the current platform, we have our Firestore already up and running. We get HL7 messages from our integration, and we can support near real-time for the clinical use cases. Because the clinical use cases, the physician or the nurse, they cannot wait until next day. They have already a patient in the room, so they need to come up with more near real-time decisions, and that's you can get with such platform.
I think another thing I just want to drill in a little bit is the question that we often get is, well, at what point in the data flow is the right point to actually put data into the cloud? Should I pre-process the data, get it clean on-prem, and move it up to the cloud when it's all ready to go? Or should we do it sooner than that? If I understand right, and this is for either of you, the data lake here is on the cloud. Essentially, the data sources are on-prem or in various places, but that data is going as soon as possible up into the cloud, and the transformations are happening there.
Yes, that's true.
Yeah, and I think with that, it's kind of interesting, and I remember Ahmed and I had many conversations about this. So at GCP, we have a couple of data processing services. We have Dataproc, we have Dataflow, we have Data Fusion, and so then there's kind of this question of, which one do I use, right? And it all comes down to use cases. And so, with the CHS, they're very, very versatile in that perspective, leveraging multiple services, right, to kind of fit the job that needed to be done. So the complexity isn't shown here, but all that to say, there's 5 boxes, but within each one of those boxes, there's about 10 different ways to do something. And so it does take time to kind of put that all together.
And that's probably a good moment to kind of go into a little bit more of the complexity here and to highlight a couple of those things. Whichever you would like. Why don't you take us through some of the main points in the architecture, and we'll drill down into a couple of places.
Yeah, it's like any data warehouse. You can take pictures as much as you want, but let me tell you that there is a 100-page architecture behind this.
Yes.
So all the secrets behind it, you can't get it from here. But I have been through it page by page with a lot of people. So there is tons of things that need to be decided. However, my advice to even the executive level and the technical level, when you start a project like this, we invested, I believe, 8 months, not in this architecture, but what we call the security foundation of your GCP and cloud. The security foundation is basically something that you need to invest in. One of the lessons that I learned that I just, in my budget, it was like 50K, but I ended up spending almost like 250K on it. But it was worth the investment because that's where you can work with your CISO, with your security guys. They feel right now that their data is secure in the cloud. So behind this, there is the whole ton of security foundation built. Then after you are done with your security foundation, because it's not like you are going to your Gmail free account, opening a free GCP, and then you can create all kind of projects, BigQuery. It's fun.
We should do that in healthcare, but you can do that.
Yeah, in healthcare, it's a ton of regulations that need to be cared. You cannot just have things talk to each other from environment to environment. You need to make sure that no one will get into your lake with any kind of something like all these things that you hear about in the news, ransomware, things like that. So, and this is one of the things when you are signing the agreement with Google, you will find it there. I mean, we reviewed it very well, that the security is shared between you and Google. So you have to do your part in this. And one of the good investments, in my opinion, before you start a project like this, you need 2 people in your team. You'll get from the vendors, but to be on your team. A strong security architect and a strong cloud architect. These 2 are key for your implementation from day one. So you're going to pay a lot of money for them because they are really hard to find. And even data architects hard to find. But this architecture, as you can see from here, from the side, you can see all these sources. The EHR, this is your electronic HR record systems, EHR and MRs, and other data sources. All these, and the top, these are like your capabilities that you have. So the data science, they are using BigQuery, ML, BigQuery. So your data platform foundation is in the bottom here. That's where you have your landing zones, your processing zone, and curated zones. Sometimes they call it something like bronze, silver, and gold. And our friends data bricks, as you know, guys. So it's the same concept here. So, and by the way, the work has to be done somewhere. Whether it's real time, whether it's batched, it has to be done somewhere. So BigQuery can be used as, now they call the lake house thing. So BigQuery is a great thing for you for do this. It's completely coupled with the Google Cloud storage. So it's like the same thing with Amazon, S3 buckets. All these buckets and cloud storage, BigQuery is integrated closely with this. So in the middle for the processing zone, to get all your data sets, tables, views, and this, that's where the services like the Hadoop Spark, that's called DataProg. DataProg, one of the services that you will find with all the vendors, if your environment is based on Hadoop, it makes complete sense to use DataProg because you will be able to migrate many of your Spark jobs and all this kind of stuff with just changing some parameters. And guess what? We had almost like 1,000 or something codes that we need to migrate. And we have almost like also thousands and thousands of tables that need to be migrated. So it was huge.
I think it's a really good example of something where, again, 6 years ago, the first time this was done on Google Cloud, there are a bunch of these boxes that weren't even available. Yep. There was no Vertex AI. There was no serverless data proc. Looker was a third-party something over there. They kept trying to sell to me. And I'm like, who are these guys? I'm on Google, right? But behind each of these, as Chris said, there's a lot of different ways to solve every one of these problems. And that's where that cloud architect is important. Those are the services that your Google account team, the SADA, that we tried to bring to our customers is helping you to figure out, okay, which of these really awesome Lego bricks is the one that's going to solve the problem. We don't do data proc and Hadoop for every data warehouse because it makes the most sense for those who have Hadoop on-prem. But for those who have it, there's a solution, right? And regardless of what the on-prem component is that you're using, there's a solution. And if you've got, the ability to get in to understand those possible architectures, what you can do now that we couldn't do 6 years ago was design it in a way that helps make the migration for you much more seamless, much easier for you, your engineers and your users than was previously possible.
Yeah, and I think one thing just generally that we spent some time with is just change management. So, we're talking about data proc. That was an easy one, right? If I'm kind of engaging with Ahmed and others from CHS, it's a pretty easy conversation to say, hey, you're using Hadoop now. You'll be using Hadoop in the cloud. Here are some of the differences. But more broadly, when you start to introduce some of the newer services on GCP, we really had to sit down and say, how do we want to tackle this issue, right? How do we want to implement change? Ahmed did a great job kind of laying out the vision. And so, communicating the vision was a big part of it. But then I think the other element was training. And so, we put together a pretty comprehensive training plan that we worked on that actually mapped some of our GCP roles. So when we say data engineer, what does that mean at CHS? When we say security engineer, what does that mean at CHS? Put that together and had a very prescriptive path to actually help users upskill very quickly. And the idea being, let's take all the decision making out of the process. Instead of saying, hey, go look at this list of trainings and pick one, we said, here's the path for you to take. Here are all of the courses, and we align that to the architecture. I think that really helped with enablement and adoption.
Yep. And this is like a journey. Why? Because this was like for us, like 18 or 20 months projects from start to finish. Because again, you are dealing with tons of, it's like this kind of, the speed, if you have seen the movie right now, you're trying to get the best passengers from the bus while it's running.
Right.
It's the whole, your EDW and your legacy is running. It's not stopped.
That's right.
And in parallel, you are working to try to do this migration. And at one point, you are switching from here to this side. This is huge. The transition phase for us, it was something like 3 months before we make a decision to decommission the legacy side. So imagine right now that you have all these reports that your executives, they are used to it, and they are getting these numbers correctly every day. And after the migration, you are getting the same numbers correctly. They don't care about what's behind. They don't care about this engine. But you need to make sure it's already right now validated, verified. So part of it, the people that they are maintaining, it's like the old say, people, technology, process. So the people, when we started the project, they were all legacy technologies. So it was a culture change and a people change to change these people, to train them on the new technologies. By the time you are ready, they can take over from your vendors. So in order to go through this, we had surveys, we had orientations, we had people coming in. Because some of them might tell you, I'm not ready to move to any new technology. And you have to respect that. And some of them will say, I'm ready to move. So the people that they are ready will become your core team that help you in the future.
And honestly, from my perspective, working with lots of different healthcare systems and companies, this is one of the reasons why we feel that CHS has been successful so far and will continue to be successful on this. And I would have predicted it from those first conversations with Ahmed in the early days of the pandemic, which is a focus and an understanding, kind of an empathy toward the users and their experience. It's fun to look at the architecture diagrams, and you can tell the three of us could geek out on architecture diagrams all day. But in the end, there's a user. And you're asking them to change their business and the way that they work, and putting as much careful care into how you change their experience, and making that smooth and seamless is as important as the architecture. CHS has done a really excellent job of that. I'm curious, just very briefly, Ahmed, if we look at this, just full disclosure for the audience, because it's not all roses. Give me one or two things that went better than expected, and then one or two things that were harder than expected.
Yeah, I mean, Cognos, the reporting layer. So we had, Chris has mentioned, we moved also to Looker Studio, and now it used to be Data Studio, now they call it Looker Studio, and you have Looker Pro. So the Looker, and basically that was a shift that we decided from the beginning, because Data Studio or Looker Studio natively connects to your BigQuery, natively. It's just like a click, create a connection, and then you're good. So it was also a strategic decision that something like 18 months ago, we start moving some of our financials, reporting and clinical reporting, to dashboards. That was a shift and big transformation for us. However, we kept our legacy reporting environment. which is our Cognos environment. Cognos is, when I joined, it was one of the major things that we looked at. And I asked the vendor already, before we start any decisions, each vendor needs to create a proof of concept for Cognos with GCP, with BigQuery. And it went successful. We were able to create it. It ran successful. However, down the road, when we started working on the actual Cognos, the lesson that we learned, the proof of concept that we did was with the latest version of Cognos. We are running a 6 years old version of Cognos. They decommissioned all the CQM and all these kind of stuff. IBM went innovative with a lot of things with Cognos, but I am running the legacy version. And that's a lesson learned. So when you are running something like that, don't make assumptions. Go and invest time with actual sampling of all the components that you are going to migrate. Don't ask the vendor to create a proof of concept for one of the. Use your actual reports or actual tables, your actual views. Run your proof of concepts with. That was amazing.
I mean, essentially, you were test driving the 2023 model of the car, but then when it came time, it turned out you were running the 2017 model of the car, and surprise, surprise, you didn't get the same output.
Because we are running 300 reports. And you are migrating 300 reports. And our developers of Cognos, they are really innovative, creating custom stuff and things like that. And you need to convert all that together.
And that was specifically around Cognos, which legacy software.
Yes.
You had within.
Finally, we were able to do it with help from Google, IBM. Our leadership actually supported us. I mean, but my CIO was grilling me all the time about this. So
I'm going to move us forward here. So one more kind of high-level slide. And by the way, we hope to have a few minutes for questions. And we'll stick around. You can hit up Ahmed and Chris with questions afterward. Just at a high level now, kind of what's next?
First of all, these two boxes at the beginning, that's your foundation. That's what you need to have in place. You need to have a modern platform, data platform, can scale, can expand, no issues. You have no dependency on the infrastructure. So we are done with this. Now, the next thing, once you have this foundation, govern adding, because when I talk to my CIO, for example, we talk data capabilities model. Your data capabilities model has the foundation, and then you start putting the capabilities on top. The foundation is done. We are in the next thing, adding the governance model. You need to have a governance model with your whatever, the model that you're gonna adopt actually, and then adding the tools for that governance, and then adding the data quality. And that's the name of our presentation too. AI is a great thing that you have. Everyone is heading there. But without quality data, you cannot reach there. So governance and data quality is our next, that we need to govern the data sets, creating all our semantic layers, standardizing all this kind of stuff. And that's where are we at. Then we will be able to expand. When I say expand, you need to add more capabilities on top of that. Whatever you need to add is going to come and basically plug and play with all this without issues.
And building on that, one spot where I spent a lot of my time today is on operations. So what does day 2 look like as you continue to expand these capabilities? And how can you do that using GCP, right? And so often I'm asked, okay, how can I use cloud monitoring to do this? Here are some of our new projects. What do the dashboards look like for that? What are the metrics that we can look into? How can you help? And so as Ahmed is kind of taking his team to, forward, right, and continuing to build this platform, I'm also kind of supporting that operation. So the operations piece of this grows as well.
Gentlemen, I want to pause here before we shift to questions, just to thank you for a few things, to thank you for the great work. CHS, one of the top health systems in the country, doing this work helps to pave the way for a lot of others. Being willing to come and share and talk about the successes and the challenges helps to pave the way for a lot of others. I'm here because I believe that our healthcare system in America and in the world is going to be better served with these technologies. And so this conversation hopefully helps accelerate that personal mission of mine. And I know a mission that I think a lot of people in this room have. So if I can ask the audience to take a moment, give some applause to Ahmed and Chris.